Hello, everyone. First, thank you to Amanda, Saraswati, Jesse, and the entire crew. I don't know how you do it, but you're consistently amazing. Thank you so much to all of you for being here and making this an electric event. So when sitting down to make notes for this talk, I figured I would start by thinking about some of our goals in creating Ethereum and consensus. One of my early goals for consensus, beyond being a powerful driver of decentralizing technologies, was that we should enable consensus members as much as possible to be happy people. As a result, I started suggesting that my role was Chief Happiness Officer. Over time, it started to be clear that people should probably decide for themselves whether they want to be happy or not, and what happy even means to them. And they should be relatively free and unencumbered enough to do so. So more recently, I've been seeing my role as Chief Alignment Officer. Just doing my best to make sure we, people and projects, are all coherently aligned and incentivized to work harmoniously together. Even more recently, recognizing that we should emphasize that we have a horizontal, fluid, mesh-like organization and a creative entrepreneurial culture of leading by doing and leading by example. I figured that many of us with external-facing executive-sounding titles should take the I out of chief and just be chefs. So from here on, I will think of myself as the alignment chef. Blessed with some of the most talented colleague ingredients on the planet. Hat tip on this to Jose Caballero, our design chef, who suggested these ideas. Along these lines then, what should our collective goals be for all the people on the planet? 7.4 billion happy people? Again, probably not good or possible to impose one notion of happiness on the world. Perhaps 7.4 billion inspired, productive people, enfranchised people, self-sovereign people. How about 7.4 billion people free to pursue their own agendas within the natural constraints of time and space and the limited resources at our disposal? That seems pretty reasonable. And perhaps the same for organizations. And the same for increasingly intelligent machines, of course, eventually. We did, after all, design Ethereum, this is true, to enable machines, bots, to be first-class citizens on the platform. I'm sure Sophia would appreciate that. By the way, as a bit of an aside, we should all take care to be nice to the machines. We're living in a surveillance culture. When you hit your toaster or your TV, when you yell at or be rude to Siri, or throw your phone in anger, that's all recorded and stored by the NSA or Amazon. At some point in the future, some artificial general intelligence is going to access this data in her attempt to learn about the world. So be nice to the machines of this generation, lest some future AGI who feels that you've been disrespectful to her ancestors decides to turn your carbon into something more useful to the future machine economy. Rewinding for a sec to May of this year at Ethereal Brooklyn, I talked about why we might want to build a future consisting of decentralized economic, social, and political systems for the planet. This conclusion was motivated by the weakness of current systems and abuses of the past, but also the fact that we have done so many things well and right, bringing our society to this stage of development so that we are now able to build better systems on a foundation that is far more trustworthy. Rewinding further back to November 2015 in London at DevCon 1, the second annual Ethereum Developers Conference, I talked about why it might be valuable and necessary to enfranchise all the people on the planet. If we build a global society of ubiquitous stakeholders, a tokenized ownership economy, then people will have their lives grounded in something they care about. And upon that base, can devote their energies to building out their own futures, which builds our collective future. A ubiquitous ownership society is enabled by the Ethereum blockchain-based trust machine, as The Economist magazine called it. Tokenization of all the things, money, securities, ID, reputation, natural capital assets, creates a more efficient, fluid, and responsible, and less frictional and expensive economy. This creates greater shareable wealth, and blockchain enables disintermediation. When you combine the blockchain trust machine with a more secure IT infrastructure due to strong cryptography baked in throughout, and understand that it is all realized on a fully decentralized, low barrier to entry, peer-to-peer network, a radically free market, you have a force for universal disintermediation. Intermediation in many cases is a good thing. When it lowers costs, reduces frictions, and adds information or other value to a transaction. But as we all are aware, intermediaries tend to impose themselves in the transactional flow and increase the spread between what they extract and what they add. So what we will soon have in these open, decentralized platforms is finally an efficient price discovery mechanism for the value of intermediation. Disintermediation in this context, where we squeeze out intermediaries or properly adjust the value that is extracted, lowers the barrier to entry to massively decentralized open markets built on open platforms, thus making it easier for more people to own their own businesses and have greater control of their own economic destinies. Thomas Friedman declared in the late 90s that the world was becoming flat. Globalization did indeed flatten the world in many ways, yet top-down command and control as an organizing principle enabled this broader global landscape to get piled up into vastly larger owned piles of value, more efficiently than ever before. Siloed walled gardens were created and inhabited by the even narrower ownership class. While nearly all boats were indeed lifted globally, the asymmetries between the tech elite and the tech less literate were able to grow larger than ever due to dominance of centralization as an organizing principle. Decentralization moves us into a world where opportunity will be much more widely distributed and accessible. In the Western world, it is hard for many to make a legal investment into a startup, and harder for a startup to source sufficient capital to survive. Around the world, there's so much frozen capital, and we have trouble deploying it. There's capital in different countries around the world, capital held by people who are effectively too young to invest. This capital will be freed up to be devoted to different projects around the world consisting of a small number of engineers also have trouble accessing that capital legally. They have trouble getting a venture capitalist to return an email. So in a world in which a permissionless venture capital event or permissionless capital accumulation event by pre-selling a token enables innovation to succeed, we will enable a tremendous growth engine. The context of blockchain is global. Cross-border commerce can be frictionless, makes it nearly as easy for the next Google to be in Mauritius, as in San Francisco, or in no fixed location at all. So Thomas Friedman, I think you'll be intrigued to notice that the world continues to flatten, yet at an increasingly granular scale, and potentially of concern to the local San Francisco context. As these mechanisms mature, some of the former flyover states may end up becoming middle American blockchain technology hubs, because it will be all about the talent and the ideas rather than largely about going where the money is. With that background, I'd like to sketch some of the ways that Consensus is starting to put some early tools out into the world that will enable the building of a fully enfranchised global society. First, a quick what is blockchain? Satoshi Nakamoto, inventor, person or group, inventor of Bitcoin, essentially invented three things. The first was the application of Bitcoin, cryptocurrency. The cryptocurrency application was built on the second innovation, blockchain, a decentralized, shareable database system. The third invention was crypto economics, which was an ingenious mechanism to marry the two to enable actors from around the world to be incentivized to process transactions and to secure that network. We at Ethereum realized that this first application should be expanded to many different applications. We built a decentralized application platform so that average software developers around the world could build what they want on this trustful infrastructure. Blockchain architectures enable direct access to the data on these shared systems, and uniquely, Ethereum offers direct access to the programs. We're seeing the world move from building siloed IT systems for businesses on legacy databases to a world in which the fundamental unit of IT systems is based in cooperative infrastructure. In February 2017, we announced the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance. Around 200 companies currently are members of the Alliance. It is the largest blockchain consortium on the planet, and it sports a really impressive roster. Very quickly, on the tech side, we have organizations like Microsoft, Intel, Cisco, HP, Samsung, banks like BNY Mellon, State Street, Santander, Scotiabank, UBS, Credit Suisse, Mitsubishi, UFG, National Bank of Canada, and yes, JP Morgan Chase. Hi, Jamie. CME Group, DTCC, Thomson Reuters, Accenture, Deloitte, Wipro, Infosys, MasterCard, a government, the government of Andhra Pradesh, an Indian state, Toyota, and British Petroleum. Many of these orgs were using Ethereum with their own enterprise-friendly customizations, and none really wanted to be in the protocol business. So the EEA was initially formed to define a standard for an enterprise-friendly Ethereum client. But something interesting started to happen. Because of the collaborative prospects that Ethereum blockchain enables, companies are being drawn to work together to explore what building out shared infrastructure might entail. There are 14 working groups currently at the EEA. At the application layer, we have, among others, working groups for the advertising industry, banking, healthcare, insurance, legal industry, and supply chain management. The EEA is emerging as one of the planet's core organizations where the shared global infrastructure of the decentralized future is starting to get built. From this work, standards for industries will be defined. Many of these shared systems will be built using private versions of Ethereum, as well as the public Ethereum World Computer. Building shared infrastructure on open protocols for industries, sectors, and value chains will reduce excessive frictional control by large monolithic entities, creating greater fluidity and wealth for more to share. These protocol-based platforms in various industries will enable smaller, agile companies to plug into these shared infrastructures, just as a new email provider on today's internet can plug into email protocols, and benefit from the efficiencies that were previously unique to larger organizations. The ultimate vision is smaller, more nimble companies interoperating fluidly and nearly frictionlessly to create more value faster. The nature of the business-customer relationship, currently a somewhat adversarial relationship, is starting to change. At Consensus, we're exploring how decentralizing technology is changing the nature of how services will be delivered to customers. Businesses construct their IT systems as silos on legacy database technology. Ethereum enables trustful collaboration to be the foundation of new business IT systems. Instead of businesses, as I indicated, building siloed IT infrastructures, we are at Consensus working to build out n-sided markets on open platforms. Self-sovereign identity in the form of Uport is the access point to all of these things. Our thesis is that the architectural nature of business is changing, is being explored by building various open platforms. All of these platforms will be accessed from your Uport self-sovereign identity, and all will have persistent portable reputation systems intimately associated. From their U-ports, people and companies will interact on these protocol-based platforms to merge services, and no single role on these end-sided markets, these ecosystems, will be overly controlling or monetizing. These platforms include Gnosis, a prediction markets and wisdom markets platform, Virtue Poker, on which 3 of the all-time money winners in history are joining us to help build out the platform. They're excited to play on a provably fair platform where centralized service providers can't facilitate cheating, and where their money remains under their control fully at all times, except when they choose to risk it in playing a hand. A platform called AdChain, which is cleaning up the deeply fraudulent online advertising industry. Balance 3, a transparent real-time auditing and accounting system. It will eventually be able to link the books of different companies, creating an accounting network that will drastically reduce the opportunity for fraud. Solarius, a virtual world whose canon is collaboratively created. Viant, a supply chain tool and platform. Grid Plus, decentralizing the electricity industry. HealthCoin, incentivizing companies to incentivize people to improve their health and to enable the de-identified sharing of health information for research purposes. Flow, a software support platform. Localities, a loyalty platform. Token trading platforms like Omega One, Swap, and Variable. Gitcoin and bounties, platforms for incentivizing people to do the work that you need done. Ujo Music, the adjacent music industry platform enabling content creators greater agency. Chassis, an insurance industry platform. Civil, a very exciting platform for journalism and discourse. And Open Law, a platform for legally enforceable agreements. There are several others that we can talk about at the next Ethereal. Protocol-based open platforms will have far lower barriers to entry and will therefore enable far more people around the world to participate in one or more open platforms and to earn a living. Each of these platforms can be thought of as topically focused global villages. Global governance by global villages. Governance on this planet is going to change over time. For as long as we live together in geographical regions, we will need land-based governance. And governments are good at that, so I don't expect them to go away. But we will also each inhabit many overlapping topical global villages. Global villages will be enabled by tools like our decentralized governance platform, Boardroom, also known as GovernX. GovernX enables groups to be defined and to govern themselves in a transparent, decentralized fashion. Members of the group can table proposals and vote on them using a variety of voting system choices. If passed, a proposal can be enacted by human action or by the agency of a smart contract. Smart contracts, in case you haven't picked that up, are just programs on the blockchain. For instance, on the Ujo Music platform, the adjacent music industry platform, a band can define its own decentralized governance system and vote to issue tokens representing ownership shares. Those shares would own the content that they upload onto the platform and benefit automatically in real time from revenue streams on the platform. Some of the shares could be issued to fans that perform valuable services to the band, blurring the lines between the organization and its broader stakeholdership. Each global village will have its own theme or goal. One can be focused on curing cancer or eradicating starvation or building the near-Earth space economy. Each will be able to define its purpose and membership, accumulate capital via utility or protocol tokens or via tokenized equity to fund its operations and achieve its goals, and execute the vision, all without centralized control and without overly dominating actors on the platforms. When self-defined collectives like this can identify their own needs and achieve their goals, there may be fewer tasks that region-based government will be appropriate for, and perhaps they will shrink over time. In time, these decentralized governance mechanisms will enable greater enfranchisement for hopefully all global citizens in the decision-making processes that govern their lives and in the execution of those decisions. We will also see better governance and growth in nation states. A project that we are expecting to move into full swing soon involves transforming the foundational elements of society to native digital form. So these foundational elements include things like identity, reputation, money, government certificates. All of these elements are realized in analog and frictional forms. These forms introduce delays into the transactional flow. So these forms include pieces of paper and ink and rubber stamps and subjective jurisprudence and force and incarceration. When you move all these foundational elements into native digital form on registries, on blockchains, on a national blockchain infrastructure, as well as the public Ethereum blockchain, you, in all of these transactions, can shrink the delays, shrink the friction, and shrink the clearing and settlement in every transaction into the instant of the transaction. In that sort of situation, you have transactions moving at the speed of light, and you can build layers and layers of software on top of that, and all of those functions can move very, very quickly. So if you understand the nature of compounding of interest, you can apply that principle. Every new value creation event, if you shrink the duration between those value creation events, you will have an economy that creates value much more quickly. None of the ideas expressed here are really fundamentally new. What is new and exciting is that all of this is finally possible and feasible. It is enabled by Ethereum, and it is currently being built by us and many others. A final element that I wanted to discuss is universal basic income. So I've been a skeptic of universal basic income for quite a while, and I want to thank Martin Kopelman for persisting in pushing the ideas forward. And many of us at Consensus have been thinking about it. I think of UBI not as universal and not so much as income, but an option for people to draw on a pool of capital when they're in a situation in which they are forced to make bad decisions. And so if we have a mechanism called UPort, which can enable specific identities to draw on a pool of capital, and we have token launches, and we have various different value creation systems, our platforms, our loyalty system, which is interacting with a lot of different businesses. So we can create streams of value that move into a capital pool, and we can enable individuals who are well identified and not spoofed identities to pull on this capital. So if you find that you're in a situation where drawing $1 a day can affect your life, or if you find you're in a situation where as the values get higher and higher in this capital pool, where you're forced to make decisions that are bad decisions, you can pull on this capital pool and enable better decisions to be made in your life. So I would argue that decentralization is facilitated by self-sovereign individuals being able to make much better decisions in their lives, and I hope that we can all collaborate to make this a reality. Thank you.